Welcome to Kranky Live, the show where bold minds meet real talk. This isn't your average sports or news show. It's where we break down sports, culture, and controversy with facts, fire, and fearless honesty. Here, truth cuts through the noise, and hype gets exposed. From football to track and field, from world issues to local debates, we ask the tough questions, speak without fear, and go deeper than the headlines. We don't follow the crowd, we set the trend. While others recycle the same tired takes, we bring fresh insight, unfiltered analysis, and bold perspectives. No echo chambers, no puppet talk, just real conversation for people who think for themselves. Listen with your brain, not just your ears. Think critically, question boldly, and speak freely. This is Kranky Live, where reason rules the mic and truth always wins. Come on, let's get into it. Good night, good night. Let me know if you can hear me out there in YouTube land before I commence this program. Good night, Drew Ross. How you doing? Thanks for being here, Ricardo. Good evening. How are you doing, Ricardo? Thanks for being here. We have two main topics tonight. We're going to spend some time going through those. So let's say a couple of things before I jump into that, though. One is congratulations to the Commonwealth contingent from Jamaica who went to the Commonwealth Games. It came second in terms of the track and field medal count. Did a brilliant job. Netball ladies also did well. Beat Australia, who normally unbeaten, but lost to New Zealand. West Indies, when I was watching them last week, they struggled today. Beat Pakistan in a test game. I thought West Indies stopped playing test cricket. In football, a lot of transfer news are occurring. Arsenal slowing their transfer business as usual, but let's hope that improves as the window progresses, and so we can bring in players like Guimaraes. I see people like Man U now shopping in Sainsbury versus Harrods, which is good. So people can't shop at the top of the ladder anymore. They have a lot of debt. And bless up, Vaughn. How you doing? And it's been an interesting time given what happened with Infantino and FIFA and all that. So, I wasn't going to do a show tonight, actually. I got a voicemail from someone. I don't know if you want me to mention his name, so I won't say it. And asked me if I plan to do a show. And I planned to do one. Peter had also mentioned it. But I've been really, really busy, like extremely busy, and haven't really had the time to do this. And that's why I'm doing it so late, because I spend the last 2.5 days, I'm trying to work with AI to code up something, and AI making a lot of mistakes. And I realize I'm in trouble because I'm having conversation with AI like a person and giving AI some choice words. And that's scary, people. That's scary. And I was reading today that we've had a rogue AI. So we have now had 2 rogue AIs. And I've made this observation before, which is this: that in life, anything that's great, as a counter side to it, that means it can be extremely evil. All depends on how you use it. Just think about anything in life that's great. Whether it's cars, whether it's money, whether it's family, whether it's relationships, no matter what it is in life, it may be wonderful one day. Even competition, got to be a winner and a loser. So whoever made this universe set it up that way, which is there's an opposite side to it. So it was really interesting. It's been really interesting to see how AI is going to provide a lot of benefits, but a lot of detriments. And let's hope the detriments don't outweigh the benefits. So tonight's show, as I mentioned, is on 2 things. One is I have a number of World Cup observations. It was an interesting World Cup. It's over. We have so much build up to these events, and then they're over and you move on, right? The champions have been crowned. The old champions were displaced, are relieved of their duties. We have new champions. The champions who came on board were a little bit different from your normal champions. Didn't have any really star in this team who stood out in the traditional offensive end. They still won, and we'll talk about them a little bit because you hear me talk about them a lot. Bless up, Float Management. How you doing? Bless up, Ricardo. Thanks, Ricardo. I didn't go to any games float management. I was protesting in my own little way. And you know what, frankly, when I first went on to check ticket prices, they were so high, I said, forget it. And if I had pursued it, I probably got ticket price because the average price was just over $200. So, but that's average. Depends on when you buy also. And what allocation your federation got. But billions watch across the globe. We had some incredible football, more than what we all expected, I would think. Amazing goals, amazing heartbreaks. I don't want to call people heroes because it's sports. I don't think there's heroes in sports. Heroes are people like who give of themselves and give back. But there are a lot of people who distinguish themselves, especially, for example, the Cape Verde goalkeeper. We had controversies. We had politics. We have money. We have technology, especially in the case of bars. We had hydration break. Or we had breaks, I'll call it. We'll talk about that a little bit. We had governance debate in terms of FIFA and decisions about a few things which we'll touch upon. So I'm gonna go through and simply reviewing. I'm not gonna review matches. I'm gonna talk about some observations that I had, and I'm gonna give some what I call a World Cup reality check. So what did the tournament teach us? What worked? What didn't work? And we're going to touch upon where football is heading, just given the controversy, and we'll map right into that controversy they had more recently with Infantino and FIFA. I mean, I should talk about what failed and what didn't fail. What failed for a lot of us who are Jamaicans is that Jamaica didn't make the World Cup. That was the biggest failure. And you know what? What's interesting as we go through this and touch upon the second topic, we're going to touch upon something that the JVF has said to us that's contrary to what we're hearing now, given what Infantino is talking about. But we're going to talk quite a bit about the Infantino controversy, and you may be surprised to see where I come out on this. And the whole proposal to bring private equity into football and everybody losing their minds. And I'm sitting back saying, I must be a contrarian in life because I view it a little bit differently. There's two sides to a story. Let me just see what Flo said. Flo says, okay, got you. Yes, I was too. Oh, okay. Oh, that's great, Flo. Glad you made that game. That was a great game to go to. A lot of goals scored, right? 6-4. George and Kranky, you think we can get Greenwood on some new players for the new cycle? I don't know what the Greenwood situation is. He's going to be in Turkey now, right? I don't know what that's about. I don't know what that entails. You don't have the same. You got a Jamaican passport and yet didn't exercise it. Was it because he wanted to be a locally deemed local in terms of France where he was playing? I don't know. And not to digress into the topic, but my hope would be that Rudolph Speed, if you're listening, because I know you watch my program, even though you don't pretend like you don't learn anything from it, but I learned from my own program. I would hope Rudolph is recruiting, even though I've got some intelligence that the recruiting has not been earnest. But I was hoping he'd be recruiting with the view that if he wants to be successful, he's going to need good players. And they're not in the JPL. Sorry. Not at the level anyway that you need. So let's talk about the World Cup. Let's talk about, we're going to touch upon first some pre-World Cup observation. One is dynamic pricing, where the average ticket price was $220, but it seemed like it was going to be about thousands. And this whole kind of pricing concept is based on supply and demand, right? There's more demand, price go up, less it goes down, whatever that entails. But if you're a FIFA, you're a hypocrite because you know, given how many people want to go to the World Cup, more than likely it's going to go one direction. More than likely. Not every game, but more than likely in general. And if it's supposed to be the people's game and the people's World Cup, then don't you make it affordable? Everybody can afford ticket prices for $200, $300, $400. In fact, in Europe, prices are much cheaper for sporting events than in the US, for example. If a lot of people are flying in, they will spend a lot of money for hotels and for meals and for travel. So why increase the burden? But I don't think FIFA thinks that way. And there's a lot of view before the World Cup. A lot of people weren't going to come because of the pricing. You'd hear hotels were crying about attendance and how much they booked out and what was projected and what was promised. And I think it worked out really well in the end. But what he's basically saying is that we're pricing sports in the concept of for corporate. So corporations get it. They pay a lot of money. They give it to their employees. They give it to their clients. And the regular man on the street is priced out of these events. Now, when I touch upon the next topic in the next segment, I'm going to tell you the hypocrisy of some of these countries and fans when it comes to what FIFA was trying to do and what's happening in sports today. I'll stop there for a second and take comments, and then I'll jump back into this. J-Ross says, nobody wants... We're jumping ahead, J-Ross. We're going to get to that. We're jumping ahead. We're doing the observation first. Now, the first thing that was very obvious was there were a lot of concern about the World Cup being boycotted. There are people from different countries, Germany, even people in prominent positions saying we should boycott the World Cup because of Trump and these visa restrictions. We saw the Somali referee, what's his name? I'm going to say Omar Artan. I think it was Abdul Kadir. He traveled to the World Cup. He's a World Cup appointed referee, got to Miami and do the vetting process, got turned back. They knew who he was. They knew they were going to turn him back. They've been hypocrite. And they had Giuliani on certain show who sort of was heading up that whole situation, saying they have evidence, but they'll never present the evidence. So we don't know. But certain countries were banned, their fans were banned, and Somalia was one of those countries. And so you had travel restrictions for certain citizens. You had border security situation. You know what's in the U.S., how that works with immigration and what that entailed, and ICE and all that. And people had a lot of concern about ICE and what ICE would be doing. We had visa restrictions. A lot of countries put on these banned visa lists. And it begs the question as to how are we commingling politics and sports? And should any country who have these restrictions be given the World Cup, frankly? Especially with a president who is not liked by most of the world, frankly. Then we had the Iran situation. You're at war with a country, and you got to go play World Cup in that country. I don't even know how that works. That's not logical. That doesn't make any sense. Right? And then there's a view, a perception of some people are concerned about coming to the U.S. and what that entailed and would they be hassled by ICE. But regardless of all this political situation and this conversation, it's the World Cup, and it's once every 4 years. And you figure it's been held in the U.S., who know to put on events, because that's what it's a capitalist country. And therefore, even though you had reservations and you had concerns, you figured at some point the football would take center stage. So the one question you'd ask as it relates to all of this pre-World Cup situation was, should politics ever influence who can attend football matches? And especially in this case, the biggest football event. And more importantly, should any country who have these restrictions ever be afforded the World Cup? Because then it's not a global World Cup. And I know people are going to say, well, it's a country, they have their rules, and you got to adhere to their rules. But you know what? If that's the case, then and you're so restrictive, you should not be given such an event. You should not. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to me. You should not be given such an event. Now we had, if you look at the world, and the world had just over 8 billion people, 2 countries didn't turn up or didn't qualify. China and India, which between both of them have what? Anywhere from 2.7 to 2.8 plus billion people. 30-something %, almost 40% of the world population. That's crazy. Now, China tried to do football a number of years ago. They're paying like Saudi Arabian prices for players, and that didn't work out. Poor strategy, poorly planned, government scrapped it. And then India, you saw them play Jamaica the other day in Unity Cup. They look like they're miles and years away from ever qualifying for a World Cup. And so the question you ask yourself is, what is FIFA doing to make sure, if you're worried about plugging to these countries, which have huge middle class and growing middle class, huge intellectual capital, a lot of money, as we saw with we see in IPL cricket in India, and we see with different situations how the NBA courts China. You got to find a way to get those countries in the World Cup. And even if they may go to 64 teams, I don't think it's going to help them, given how to see them play. And then we have countries like Nigeria, for example, 300 million people. And even though they have a good football team and a lot of players who play in Europe, didn't qualify. So you had between those three countries over 3 billion people not represented in the World Cup. 3 point something billion of the 8 billion. That's crazy. Some way, somehow, those countries have to get their act together. But that's their government, that's their institution, that's their FAs, or they call them in FIFA the MAs. And if FIFA is into the money business, you imagine China in the World Cup and India in the World Cup and, well, less or so Nigeria. That's a lot of commercial revenues. I didn't say Italy because, you know what? They don't have the population. They don't have the size. And commercially, it would make much difference. I'm trying to focus on the countries that have huge population, a lot of eyes, especially when I think the World Cup will go subscription-based in the next 2 cycles. Everybody got paid a little $5, and you multiply by how much billion, and you see how much money you make, more than you make today. My other observation, which I've talked about before, is that this is what I call the Diaspora World Cup. So that's Vaughn saying. Let me pick this up before I jump into the Diaspora World Cup. Vaughn saying, so rewarding teams a World Cup spot just because they have a huge population. Is that what we're trying to do now? Vaughn, you need to listen. Vaughn, you need to listen. Vaughn, if we start that, I'm going to beat you up. You need to listen. What I'm saying is that it's sad that countries that have huge population that could provide more commercial success for the World Cup are not in the World Cup. And what are their MAs doing or FAs doing? It has nothing to do with, no, they should be, they qualify like everybody else. Just like Jamaica didn't qualify, they didn't qualify. But you can't have that larger population, which means if you have 1.4 billion people like India does or China does, you can't produce a football team with 11 people who are good enough to play on the world stage or get in the World Cup? Really? Out of it, how much billion? So take off half the women out of the team. Say it's half and half, even though China have more men than women. I think 20 more million men than women. So say you have 700 million and take off all the old people, then your football playing team is probably, could play football, probably 100 million. Jamaica got probably 100,000 that you can pick from. They got 100 million. That's 100. That's crazy. And they can't pick 11 that's good enough? That means they do it in cricket. Now, it's physically different, but you can create a system. You go to Spain and they can learn and create a system and get, but it's not pushed as it should be pushed. We saw India, when they came to play in England against Jamaica, they didn't bring their best team, but they still, who they brought weren't good enough out of a much billion people. So, and I've been to India. There's a lot of people there. Now, to me, this is what I call the Diaspora World Cup. And this is where you'll be surprised China wouldn't have done better, but a lot of people from Asia who migrate and play sports don't necessarily play football. They play other sports. But, and I've talked about this before, and it goes both ways. A lot of people who migrated went back to play for their forefathers' country. A lot of those who migrated had kids who play for their country of domicile. So it was a huge number. I forgot what the percentage was of the World Cup where people weren't born in the country that they're playing for. I think France had over 90 people who played for different countries, who were participating in the World Cup. Over 90 players from France, born in France, participated in the World Cup. So take out their 20-something, still have about 70-something that from France were in the World Cup, playing for them in the African countries. But you know what I mean, which is a lot of individuals, and I call it the Diaspora World Cup, and it shows you how global the world was. You know, teams like France, the Netherlands, England, Portugal, Curacao, DR Congo, Cape Verde, you go on and on and on. Morocco, populated with either people who emigrated there and were born there but have foreign parents, or vice versa. And it just shows you how global the world has become, and how it's a little bit surprising that we still have these xenophobia across the world. Politics divides people, but football seems to somehow try to unite them. Maybe not as successfully as you want, but try to unite them. And football is supposed to be the global game, and it truly has been a global World Cup in terms of the composition of the teams and the people who play in the World Cup. Even France, even Spain had Laporte, who wasn't born in Spain, and had Yamal, whose parents came from Africa. So it was pervasive Williams, a lot of players. It's just pervasive how that works. I was going to say Jamaica, but I forgot we didn't make the World Cup. So if a number of players were brought in Jamaica, well, we were watching like everybody else. Now, one thing that there was a lot of discussion on about the World Cup was we went from, so this is another observation, what I'm going to call the expanded 48 team World Cup. So we went from what was it, 32 teams to 48, and there was a lot of pushback. And we always get pushback from two continents mainly, Europe and South America. Because almost every South America team is in the World Cup. You had more teams in South America in the World Cup than didn't make the World Cup, right? You had maybe Venezuela, Peru, Chile, Bolivia. There weren't too many countries that didn't make the World Cup in South America. In fact, if they go to 64, South America may have every team make the World Cup at some point, given the allocation of places. So most teams in South America are in the World Cup. So they don't have any interest in it being expanded. More games to play, more chance to get knocked out. Europe the same way. Europe have won their first round, and they have another group, then they have another group. They continue to have people, they're 50-something people in Europe, and they have more than any other region allocated spaces apart from South America. But what we learned with the 48 teams was, and you hear this almost at every World Cup, people say it's the best World Cup ever, very competitive World Cup, is that this global migration, this diaspora I talk about, informs the competitiveness of the World Cup. This whole construct where the diaspora is migrated and it's a global game and global people, and Cape Verde can have more than half their squad, Curacao can have almost all their squad, DR Congo can have half their squad who are born outside the country, develop football in a more mature environment where they have more resources, and then come back and play for the country of their forefathers. That has helped with the competitiveness. And so the World Cup was much more competitive, much more interesting, even though it was 48, and even supposedly it was watered down. It didn't feel watered down to me at all. And you still had countries like Nigeria who were in the World Cup, or Cameroon, who normally attend the World Cup, were not in the World Cup, or Chile, for example. We still have those situations, and still was a very, in Italy, someone had mentioned earlier, very, very important, very, very interesting World Cup. So the expansion, to me, succeeded, and I'm curious to see how it's going to work now that the debate has shifted from 48 to 64. Now, the first thing will come to a lot of your minds, because we are very parochial in our thinking, which is 48, 64. Oh, we have 16 more places. CONCACAF may get 3 of that. South America can't get more than 3, so we run that spot. Europe will get them normal allocation. Africa forget, Asia forget. Maybe CONCACAF can get 3 spot. So if Jamaica rank 7th now, because them ranked after Honduras, maybe if Honduras making it over, we have a chance to get this. Maybe CONCACAF get about 9, 10 team. We most can't make it. Nathan Boss said, no, we're not sure. Okay, if Honduras get better, El Salvador get better, Nicaragua get better, Dominican Republic get better. I mean, enough Spain, Haiti is there already, Trinidad get better. So, well, I know about Trinidad get better. Trinidad seems to be stuck like Jamaica. But the point is that you're going to have more places and more chance to get to the World Cup. And the pot only gets bigger. FIFA was predicting to make 10 million. Suppose they make about 14. The numbers are not finalized yet. So it's a big World Cup. So 64 teams is probably a given for 2030. And it ties into my perspective that the World Cup was very, very competitive. Even though there were more matches, there were fewer easy matches. You think about it. Spain won the World Cup, gave up 1 goal. One of Spain's biggest competition was Cape Verde, was supposed to be the minnows in their group, because Cape Verde was better than Argentina and better than France to me when they played Spain. Because France provided no competition if they were dominant in the World Cup. And Argentina was worse. They didn't turn up. Well, they did turn up. They just got overwhelmed. So when the small, and 7 of the 8 African teams made the second run, I thought it was. They got to the last 32. And some could have gone further, like Senegal, gave their game away. I think Ivory Coast underachieved in the World Cup. They had a very good team. Good night, DC. How you doing? So the concept of adding more teams to the World Cup, the competitiveness of the World Cup, I don't think 64 teams would make it any less competitive. Because think about it this way. Even if you add those teams, if the perennial favorites still go through, you get most teams are now have players, as Rudolph Speed have talked about. I know Rudolph's name has come up. That coaching is improving across the globe. And that's one thing FIFA has done a good job of, or a better job of, is trying to be a much more inclusive organization and trying to get some of the more fundamental aspects of football out in the community and out in the world and allow these teams to get better and to be more competitive. So between that and the diaspora, you're seeing much more competitive matches in the World Cup, and smaller teams like DR Congo should have beaten England, actually, if we said us miss that sitter, are able to compete against some of the better teams, more finance teams, more resource teams. One of my observations, which is a little bit unique, is about Cape Verde. One of the smallest countries to be in the tournament, but probably the biggest feel-good story I saw the other day, where the goalkeeper was now in Chile on a contract, and the crowd that came out to greet him was ridiculous. But the one thing Cape Verde showed throughout the tournament, and they were brilliant, whether it was against Spain or against Argentina, they played the two World Cup finalists, and they could have beaten Argentina, and they held Spain. And they came to a very tough Africa zone, with most of their team coming from the diaspora. They were very well organized, even though they were technical, confident, organized, and likable. And sort of informed the view about football being a truly, truly global sport. And that you don't necessarily have to have all the resources to be good. You have to have good leadership. People with vision, people with strategy, people who believe in giving back. And not just being egotistic and thinking about themselves, as we have seen even from more recently people in FIFA. Now, another observation, so that's my 7th observation. My 8th observation is this, that the rise of African football. Now, we've seen Africa, it's sort of vacillate, it wavers, Africa. They come good in the 80s with Cameroon. They will come with a one team. Cameroon will come one year, Senegal will come, Ghana will come, Nigeria may come, but it was never sustainable. And what we're seeing is more of a shift. The diaspora helps quite a bit with that. I said France had 98 people at the World Cup, and a lot of them are playing for African countries. A lot of the countries that they play for, because France have a lot of large immigrant population. But you can see for Africa, the players are better coached, because not necessarily coached in Africa, but they're playing outside Africa. They grew up in great infrastructure, great resourcing, great coaching, great support system, and it's showing their play. Because my view has always been this: it's very hard to coach international football teams. And the thing is overrated in terms of the coach's role. It's not a football team. You got to be a manager, you got to be an organizer, and you got to have some strategy in terms of how you can get the job done, but you're not improving players significantly when you have 2 and 1 week window to do so. That's not happening. But Africa now has, and I see where people like, even Antonio invest in Ghana. A lot of money is pouring into Africa, whether by the Middle East or other countries, to identify players with potential and give them the support they need. So they go to Middle East, they come to Europe, they come to they're all over now. Diamande was playing in the US before he went he went to Europe, actually, and now he's ended up probably at Real Madrid. So the question is no longer whether Africa can compete, because Africa is competing. The question is, will they improve enough to be considered in the group that can win the World Cup? So I thought Ivory Coast had a very good team. I talked about the coaching improving. I didn't think they coached did the best job with their team. I thought people like Ahmad were playing better than even Diamande and should have got more game time, and didn't. You watch the game and how the games are managed, you get frustrated with some of these coaches. But then again, we're just spectators, so we don't have that insight and perspective. My ninth observation is, bless up, man of God, is about that Spain was outstanding. I think the Spain team and the country of Spain and their MA should be taught in football circles. Best football. They play the best football throughout the tournament. Most dominating football. Balanced in terms of how they operated and how they played. They had the best tactics. They had a superior midfield. They had a system, and it showed you a system that worked. Think about it. Who was Spain center forward through this tournament? So everybody talk about center forward, the Mbappé, the Kanes, the Haalands, right? And you need them to win games. Who was Spain center forward? Where was Spain? Even Spain's wingers. Where were Spain forwards? Yamal, William, Ayasabal, what's his name? Who was on the left wing but going to come inside. Did they have a lot of forwards who were scoring a lot of goals? Or was it just a team? And it shows you what the idea of team means. And especially, this is one of the most important things, because I've talked about this ad nauseum. When you have the ball and the other team can't get the ball, you can't lose the game. And those who talk about, well, position this and position that, we play kick and run, and we play, here about we got to link up with our strengths. We are fast and we're quick and we're powerful. Talk about Jamaicans now. And that's what we have to utilize. Well, you do that when you can't coach. That's what you do when you can't coach. Doesn't say you shouldn't identify your strengths that are natural and embellish them and enhance them to allow you to be successful. But if you see, that was France we're talking about there. And France have technical players. Look what Spain did to France. It was probably one of the most surprising games I've seen in the World Cup, where two teams are going to play a game. One team is dominating the World Cup, just destroying people. Apart from them, they played Paraguay, who had the dark arts. Spain just seemed to be getting over the line. And Spain played France, and it's like France couldn't play football. France couldn't even make passes. Because the reason why Spain was so dominant throughout the World Cup, in my view, was you can get the ball off them, and when you got it, they were arrested. Because when you have the ball, you don't get tired. They pressured you, and you can. And most footballers don't like to be pressured. So they were by far, when the tournament was done, didn't look that way up to when they played France in semifinal, but they were by far the best football team. The only player you could call of Spain, there were some number of good players, Cucurella, Porro, Olmo, yeah, Alex Baena. But the player you can call up most for Spain was the CDM. And you hear me preach over and over again and say this: if you can't coach a midfielder, you can't coach. You're not a good coach. You think you're a good coach, you're not. If you can't produce very good midfielder, and Jamaica's never produced none. In fact, the Caribbean don't do that. Then you lack good coaching. And in Spain, they had an abundance. Dani Olmo doesn't start all the time for Barcelona. And he played. Even the coach, Fuentes, he's not no big name coach outside of Spain. He coming through the youth system. It's system. He bet Pedri on the bench. Pedri came to me, was the best midfielder, but he was on the bench in those games. Marino came on the bench and scored a couple of goals. You couldn't score in Spain. You give up a whole tournament, you score one goal. They were dominant. And you can point out most times to any player, you say, that player was exceptional apart from maybe Rodri. And to a lesser extent, Cucurella. So it's really interesting to watch and think, you know what? Infrastructure is important, resources are important, but coaching, especially when you're young, and about the fundamentals to get those done, which is what Spain has ad nauseum, is an imperative. And it is something that is instituted and embedded in any country who want to play football. I don't know why people wouldn't just go buy your national team, go get a couple of, build a relationship with people in Spain, understand their strategy, understand the vision, understanding their template and leverage it. Try to pay them some money to come help you with how you set the system and how you execute against it. because that system sure works. They don't have the best athletes, but they play football with a lot of intellect. I was watching a tape of Spain, and the passing was ridiculous. The anticipation of the movement, the triangles, the spacing, the thought process, how you make decisions before you get the ball, not when you get the ball. But anyway, I could go on and on about it, wax lyrically. And then we have the Argentina, who were the finalists. Now, Argentina have championship mentality. They have won, 3 World Cups? And probably more recently, they won, 86? They won 2022. And they won, 78, I think it is. And they're in the final again. So they're always there. And Messi showed you how brilliant he was. They had experience. They had some good players in their team. But when they play in Spain, it's almost as if they were kids playing against grown-ups. It was crazy. And you ask yourself, why was it that way? Is Spain that good or is Argentina that bad? I think it was a little bit of both. I think in hindsight, if you're going to lose, you're going to lose away in which you're fighting like it's going crazy. You have to press the other team because nobody, even Spain, because the reason why France struggled, France wasn't the best defensive team, especially with their front four. You have to be able to match them defensively. Even though it's still going to be a challenge for you because they move the ball so quickly and they're so thoughtful about how they play. But Argentina, a lot of people have problems with that side of the sport, given their history and all that. Their thuggery, and they should get some penalties after the World Cup. Their behavior was reprehensible. And then Infantino would say how good they were, and their media and their government praised them. Yeah, they should be praised for getting to the final. They should be praised for being resilient. They should be praised because they never die attitude, just like Jamaica's under-20 team. And by the way, I'm carrying the game on Wednesdays, so come with my watch along. I'm going to probably start half hour before the game starts. Congrats to those kids, by the way. But Argentina lost what it is to be sports people and to be good sport. They were awful in terms of their behavior, and they should be punished. Another observation was, as I'm saying, not going to games, but France's failure. They probably were by far the biggest disappointment of the tournament, especially given they run up to the semifinal. A lot of talent, a lot of quality. I'm not sure that Deschamps knew how to use his team or pick his best team. They failed to deliver. And I think part of it was coaching. Part of it was individual players and how they played and how they defended. Part of it was they got outplayed, outcoached, outmatched. I think they were motivated. And they were probably overconfident also. Because they have a lot of very good players. Right? The Mbappé, the Barcola, the Olises, the Dembele. I thought Dembele had a stinker of a World Cup, even though he scored 4 goals. But they got lost. And I think part of the problem that they had was their midfield was unbalanced. And it would look good against a team you can overwhelm. When you're playing a very good team and your midfield is not good, and this team has by far the best midfield in the world in terms of how they play, not necessarily the best midfielders, but the best team midfield, you get embarrassed what happened to France. The game is won in the middle of the field. Not always won at either end. It's in the middle of the field. How you protect your defense and how you supply your forwards. And France only really had 2 midfielders because Olise is not a midfielder. And that hurt them quite a bit. Let me take a comment and I'll keep going. I have about, how much observation I have? I have about 8 more observations. DJ said, question, is there a reason why Jamaican players see the EPL as the ultimate goal rather than Spain? Well, I think there are a few reasons. One is that that's what you see most, right? The EPL is the most prominent league. It's supposed to be the best league in the world, and it provides the most money. And apart from Atletico Madrid, apart from Barcelona and Real Madrid, Spain is okay. Technical league, but it's okay. In England, you have 7 or 8 teams vying, normally 6, but 7 or 8 teams vying, giving Villa's now emergence, Newcastle emergent, then would have fallen back. It's a more prominent team. He has a lot of money, has a lot of notoriety. And the people speak English too. And that's part of it. So you're going to aspire. I think Jamaican players, everybody want to go to England, but because it's a culture you're also probably more familiar with. But a lot of them don't go to England. They go play in different places. They're in Ukraine nowadays. They're in Poland. They're all over. Places I don't even know. You don't even hear about. They're playing there. So, yeah. I think a lot of people want to go to England, give them the colonialism and associate with Jamaica, but the language, the large population of Jamaicans. But it's not just Jamaica, it's every country. Brazilians, Argentinians, Spaniards, people from France, they all go to England. It's where the money is. You're going to follow the money. Now, here's one point I'd say about World Cup. I'm going to contradict myself a little bit. I think managers do matter in the World Cup. In international football, they matter. I don't think they're as effective as you have in club football in some respects, but they can also be more effective if their strategy is good. I'll give you an example. I think Hallgrimsson is a very effective international manager. Being able to coach one game in a certain way or two games, or coach tournament football. So I thought Deschamps got out coached by the Spain coach. I thought Tuchel made I would have fired Tuchel. I'd have fired Tuchel. It reminded me of McLaren going to the Gold Cup with 3 midfielders or 2 midfielders. I'd have fired him. I thought Tuchel, you could forgive him for the Mexico game because they had 10 players. How he played against Argentina was criminal, especially given how Cape Verde played Argentina and how Egypt played Argentina. You attacked them. Man went in a shell, put on about 100 defenders, trying to protect a 1-love lead. When he has offensive players playing, what's his name from Chelsea? Playing Rodgers at right wing. Have Saka on the bench, and Saka same fit. Tuchel get fired. So he wasn't that great. But you had coach like the Cape Verde coach. I thought they were very good. I thought Pochettino did a good job with the US. I thought Norway coach was brilliant. There were a number of coaches I thought who did a really good job in the World Cup. I didn't think the Ivory Coast coach did a good job. So there's some coaches who are very, very good. So coaching does matter. And it's not just because of outcome. You know, Cape Verde coach was brilliant in terms of how he played against Spain versus played against Argentina. They attack Argentina more. They were very defensive against Spain. Even though Spain kind of forced to be defensive. In international football, you make some small tactical adjustment, it can allow you to win. And I think that's very, very important. Now, it wouldn't be any World Cup, and it wouldn't be an observation if you didn't talk about the so-called, I wouldn't call them the superstars. Messi reminded us why he is deemed to be the GOAT, even though I think you should have GOAT in what era you played in. So if you played before 1980, that's Pele. And he's the only GOAT to me who dominated in this era where nobody questioned whether Pele was the best footballer or not. And to a less extent, Maradona too. People question whether Messi is versus Ronaldo. Nobody questioned Pele from when he got on the scene in the 58 World Cup through the 70s. Even the 80s, there were no discussion about who was the best footballer ever. And then Maradona came along and he won a World Cup in 86 and people started saying Maradona, but his time was shorter than Pele. Pele's time was from 58 up to the 80s. You're talking about 20-something, 30-something years. Even today, we talk about Pele. Maradona was more 80s and 90s, even though he spoke about subsequently, especially given what he did at Napoli, 86 World Cup, and even his drug problem add to it. Messi took over and Ronaldo in this era, but there's always a debate about the two. In this time we have now, if Messi is now getting up there in age, and Ronaldo, the question is now, who is the best player? And this World Cup, we saw some of that. Messi was great. Ronaldo disappeared. And because he's probably bigger than Portugal, probably killed their hopes. Mbappé was brilliant and showed, since he came on the scene at 17 years old, Monaco, then PSG and Real Madrid, he's been ridiculously good. And has gotten better and better and better. Still can't win the big one, except he did win 2018 World Cup, but he was very young then. 2022 wins the main man, France captain. Didn't win at PSG, didn't win anything at Real Madrid, so it's interesting. Given his journey, his ability, and shows you that center forward who may be great, may not necessarily be the answer to winning. Bellingham was brilliant. And to imagine before the World Cup, there were some reporters in England and some people saying he shouldn't go to the World Cup, or Rodgers should start. And class is class. Went to the World Cup and showed that class is class. Cristiano Ronaldo went out with a wimp. Now, I must admit, so I'm a little bit biased, I'm not a Ronaldo fan, to be honest. I'm not totally a Messi fan either. I'm more of a Messi fan than a Ronaldo fan. But I'm not really a fan of either. I'm just observe the football and appreciate good football. I'm more of a Ronaldinho fan. Well, I think if he didn't party his life away, we'd be better than both of those players. Number 14 observation is that I think football is changing or has changed. Probably start with sort of Barcelona with Iniesta, Xavi, Busquets, Puyol, in terms of the whole pressing and tiki-taka. Goalkeepers don't have to play with their feet. Say a player from the back, even to your own detriment. Transitions are sometimes faster. And so are counterattacks. A lot because you have so much people playing the football at a high level. Their squad depth is ridiculous. See somebody squad like France squad, they could play 2 squads in the World Cup and make the semifinal. Because of the migration that we have across the globe, athleticism is all over the place. I'll give you an example. Norway. Norway had 3 black players, 3 or 4 black players in their team, and Switzerland too. And I'm watching them play and I'm thinking, they're some of the better players and 2 of them are on the bench. Same thing for Switzerland. And they come on the field and they're just a difference maker. And I'm like, I wonder who picking this team. Now people say, well, they come off the bench and they're effective. If you want to win, I think you play your best players first. And then if they can't finish the game, you bring in the substitute. But athleticism, because of migration, because of globalization, has improved significantly. Let me take some comments and then I'll go to my rest of my observation, then jump into Infantino. Jura said he never used Kobe. Must be a Man U fan. I don't think there was any room for Kobe. The problem with Kobe is he's very good on the ball. He's very poor off the ball. He's slow. He's methodical. Defensively, he's challenged. He needs defensive support around him. So I'm not surprised in getting the game. I am surprised about that actually, because I saw him playing in a number of their warm-up game. I saw him play maybe the whole game against Ivory Coast. He didn't get a kick throughout the World Cup. And he had Kone is a good player. Tuameni is a good player. Ribber what's his name? Not Ribber. What's the Caucasian kid name? Because they have to have 2 on the field. He and Luka Dean. The one that his mom managed him. Name is eluding me now. He's a decent player, but I thought that's part of their problem. That was part of their problem. The midfield was challenged. Me about my sense. Yeah, and they had one of the better midfield. In fact, they benched Bernardo Silva. So if you're benching him, and they have Vitinha, they had. Where was Bruno? Hey, Drew Ross, where was Bruno Fernandes? Was he at the World Cup? I couldn't recall. Drew Ross, was Bruno Fernandes at the World Cup? I'm trying to remember having heard Bruno's name called. I can't recall. Maybe he wasn't there. Yeah, Switzerland too. Yeah, and they benched one of the kids who got injured, and I was a little bit surprised because he came on and scored before he got injured, scored quite a bit of goal, and was one of their better players. I was surprised he was on the bench. And then we had number 15 in my observation, which was hydration breaks. Now, there was a lot of concern about the heat across the U.S. and Mexico, especially in the summer, especially in places like Texas and Florida, which is burdensome. So player welfare mattered. It was very important to make sure players weren't being put at risk when they played. But I've always thought about that football is being a little bit archaic in terms of operate. Football to me is one of those ancient sports with ancient fan base who want to maintain the status quo, because if the game is not broken, don't change it. And I realize that everything in this life is changing, but football shouldn't change. And football has to evolve. An hydration break brings money in, but also helps with the players and give you a better product. They're less tired. They're more hydrated. Why wouldn't you do it? Oh, stop the game. The game of continuity. Game stop every 2 seconds with throw-ins and kick out of bounds. Game is always stopping. They say it's a more extended stop. And VAR is stopping the game. No. So get over yourself. In the old days, I've talked about it. In the 70s, I don't know when they changed it. At halftime was the only break you got, and you would eat oranges. You couldn't drink water. You couldn't drink juice. You couldn't take in any fluids because you're supposed to get cramps from it. I don't call it muscle contract. You couldn't drink water. You couldn't fluid. That's football, I'm surprised they changed it. Backwards in so many ways. And I watch football sometimes like, why aren't they doing? And maybe because you're influenced by American sports. And it's not just the commercial element of it. It's just the thought process involved and the common sense. I'm gonna use the word. I hate to use the word common sense. I mean, like anything that's too common. But it don't make no sense a lot of times. Now, another point, which we know would come up in the World Cup, was VAR. Man. Now, VAR is supposed to be a tool that assists, not a tool that keep making mistakes. And the biggest mistake made in the World Cup with VAR was the sending off of Switzerland center forward, whereby he dived, true. They gave a yellow card to the Argentinian. Then they decided to reverse the call. But he's not supposed to get sent off. That's not what the rule says. You're supposed to protect the innocent. And the person being guilty is subjective, but he should not get sent off based on the rules. Now, if they want to do it, they got to change the rules. And VAR messed up. And nobody identified it then. And nobody, I was subsequent to the World Cup that this came out, but it shouldn't have been sent off. Which changed the game, by the way. Because Switzerland could have won that game. Which if me or Switzerland, I'd be suing FIFA because that's money left on the table. I think the winner got 40 million. Switzerland didn't get 40 million. So Drew Ross is saying, ads make sense, and they took a page of Super Bowl. Yeah. But we all say you should learn from others, right? We all know we have a monopoly on intellect, and that you should learn from others. And every company, and every country, and everyone should try to get examples and things that you want to emulate that can help you progress in what discipline you want to progress in. Leverage it and use it. Now, another observation is the Balogun controversy. That was a big one where some people lost their mind, especially in Europe. So Balogun got a red card. I think an undeserved red card. He inadvertently stepped on the heel of a player and then got a red card and was sent off. And Infantino, in his wisdom, he said he didn't do it, but the disciplinary committee of FIFA did. After a call from the Orange Man, reversed the decision and let him play, which is ridiculous. But I think people are a little bit hypocritical when it comes to that because, if Trump does it, it's a problem. And world leaders should have an influence on decision making. But Ronaldo got a red card before the World Cup. Should have got a two-game ban. And he got rescinded. And there were some murmurings, but they were an outrage. Why wasn't there outrage? Maybe some people said, you know what? He's a liability to Portugal, so maybe he should play. But it still happened. But the question that it raised when it comes to this is this. Because we had an England player who got a red card inadvertently, should they ever reverse that? You only reverse one red card in the tournament? And it was a red card, even though maybe say it's subjective and maybe it should have been given, but it's a red card. So where's the consistency? Where's the transparency? Where's the trust? And it goes back to this. How should you deal with controversial matters? Are these decisions while maintaining confidence in the system where the system is showing you that it's partial and it's biased and it may be unfair? And this is just one example. I'm sure if you look across all the things that happened with the Argentinians of the world and people complain through the tournament that Argentina was being favored, it does have some credence to that. Now, one thing in the World Cup which I find interesting that people complain about, or some people were happy about, was what I would call the commercialization of the World Cup. As we talked about hydration break, for example. Sponsors, corporate hospitality, the suites that were occupied by all these celebrities, technology, advertising, revenue generation, and FIFA made supposedly 14 billion, projecting 10, and a lot of money got paid out. And the question is, what they would do extra 4 billion that they got? Maybe that's why Infantino got carried away. The World Cup is big business. And we're going to go into the next segment and talk about that. It's big business. And there's no other place to see it than in the current World Cup. And there's always controversy about the World Cup. Should Qatar have gotten the World Cup? Should Saudi Arabia have gotten the World Cup? Nobody complained about Morocco or Spain or Uruguay, but they complain some other country get it. They complain when South Africa got the World Cup. Because you'll only be in Europe and South America and North America. Can't be in those other continents or those other countries. It's crazy. Now, my observation for number 19 is this. I'm going to transition from this World Cup. So it's right after the World Cup. So this is post-World Cup. Post-World Cup, we had the fallout from the Balogun situation that carried over. We had a lot of concerns about what transpired during the World Cup. We had a lot of concerns about Argentina and their behavior. Those are post-World Cup. So during the World Cup and after the World Cup, and the implications of what transpired. Probably less so about Spain and them winning. The controversies were more prominent than the Spain winning and the celebration in Spain, where they play some nice reggae music, because I was watching them. Some excerpts from the celebration. Music which I couldn't even understand the patois, so I don't understand it. Guess you just move to the beat. And now we have the whole thing with FIFA, private equity, capital investing. So it makes sense to try to transition to that discussion. But before I do that, let me just say a couple of things about the World Cup. Was it the best World Cup ever? It's always going to be subjective. They said the World Cup in Russia in 2018 was the best. They said the 2022 in Qatar was the best. Now they said this one is the best. I'm sure in 1970, World at their feet World Cup with Pele and the brilliant Brazilian team, you say is the best. Or the 74 World Cup in Germany. Well, 70 was at Mexico, 74 Germany. Or the 78 World Cup that was played in South America, Argentina, or the 82 World Cup or the 86 World Cup played in Mexico. How did Mexico get so much World Cup people? Mexico got 70, 86, and this World Cup, and England get none since 1966. I didn't know they made a decision for the World Cup. I won't get it. And England have all the infrastructure. That made no sense to me. Did you just say player singing a song? Yeah. Did they know the words? I couldn't understand the patois. So yeah. But if England has one of the best football setup, I still can't get a World Cup since 66. That makes no sense. Maybe they give them one in 2066, like 100 years, like they do in Uruguay. That's what they're waiting for. That's kind of strange, actually. Italy has gotten the World Cup since then. France has gotten the World Cup. Spain is getting a World Cup. Germany has gotten World Cups. US has gotten 94, and now Russia's gotten World Cup. It's crazy, actually. Literally crazy. But I guess that's how it flows. That's how it determines. But a couple things of the World Cup. The World Cup was brilliant. FIFA did a very good job with the World Cup, and the US shows you how you can put on a show. Because all I got was good reviews and good feedback from people's experiences, even with all the pre-World Cup concerns. But also the World Cup showed us that there are things that happen on the pitch and off the pitch, which are very controversial, that we talked about. And it shows that sports can escape politics or can escape life. Right? It's increasingly shaped by politics, by business, by global power, by the whole concept of governance and lack of accountability. And the question is, who really won the World Cup? Was it Spain? Or as we're now transitioning to, who's going to control it going forward? Really interesting. So let's stop there. I don't know what you know what, before I go in the next round, just drop in the chat quickly, what was your most profound observation from the World Cup? So I've gone through my observation. I had about 19 or 20 of them. Just do it quickly. It ain't gonna be a long sentence. Less of triples. Yeah, every World Cup is the best World Cup because it's that kind of event. They said Russia would have been a mess, and Russia was great. They would say Russia would be a mess, and the LGBT community and XYZ, and it was a great World Cup. They said 22 would have been the same thing with LGBT again, and it was too hot, and it was too this. And the Middle East have so much money they can make anything look good, and that was a mixed World Cup. And then this World Cup with the Orange Man and Visa and all these things and ticket prices, still was a great World Cup. You can't stop a good thing. Owen say Argentinians hate it now. Owen, me have a bone to pick with you. I'll digress a little bit. Owen. I can't forget it now. I came in this program the other day, and I said that I said AI was primitive still, even though it's wonderful. And you beat me up and said, I understand, and there's generative AI and blah, blah, blah. Owen, I spent the last 3 days, Saturday through today, working with AI to build a scoreboard. AI is smart in a lot of ways, and AI is as dumb as a doorknob in a lot of different ways. Trust me. It's brilliant in a lot of ways, because only as good as the people who made it, and dumb as a doorknob in other ways. I was working 15-hour days trying to build this thing, and I can't believe some of the things I said to AI people. I don't think I want a person I talk to. In fact, I won't talk to nobody, so I'm going to probably do me something. What you say? Oh, no, you beat me up, so I don't understand. We talk about generative AI. Yeah, it's dumb as a damn doorknob, but brilliant and great at the same time. Maybe sound contradictory, but that's how it is. But anyway, people, just drop in the chat anything you think, if you think about it, which is your most profound thing you thought about the World Cup, or something which surprised you, or something which you thought was great. Just 2 seconds before I transition to the next topic. Give me 2 seconds. Indulge me for 2 seconds. I'm telling you, people, I was so frustrated. Yesterday, I spent 15 hours working with AI to get the thing done. AI keep making mistakes and making assumptions. I'm like, stop making what's the assumption, and just tell me the thing. And then my niece is outside saying, who are you talking to? I think I'm losing it. Who are you talking to? She's like, something wrong with Uncle. See if Uncle is okay. Crazy. Triple says, well, the quality of all teams has improved. Yes, the quality has improved, as I said, informed a lot by the diaspora, but also by better coaching in those countries. Vaughn said, we need to go to closed stadiums so where there won't be an issue. Yeah, it depends. I mean, the elements supposed to inform the football. It's not cricket. Only Thunderstorm can call football. So you don't have to worry about that in Europe that much, actually. DC said, if playing fields were level, African nations could rally the wealthy nations on a conservative. Yeah, they could, but the playing fields are not level. So the question is, if Morocco can do it, why can other countries do it? Right? If Morocco can do it, I'm going to take a break for 2 seconds, people, with some water here. Can you hit the like button while I'm doing so? Please hit the like button. I'm trying to get more people to watch these type of programs. People on my programs want to talk about Jamaica and U20 and national team. They don't want to talk about more expansive topics. So let's transition, since you guys are not giving me any more topics, let's transition into the whole debacle with FIFA and Infantino and private equity. The World Cup is over. People got over euphoria. Spain are the champion. Argentina are hooligans, or behave like hooligans, I should say. Not necessarily hooligans, behave like hooligans. Lose without, they lost with a lack of dignity. Celebrations done. People getting ready to transition back to club football. And then we have the headline, FIFA is selling football. Someone stop there for a second. I'm sorry for a second. Let me do this. I'm trying to pull up some of these comments that you have here before I go further. I'll give everybody a due. DJ said, the World Cup let me realize Jamaica should not be there and Kyrgyzstan deserve to be there. Jesus God. The World Cup made me realize that some people raised in Jamaica, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. Triple says, another opposition, lack of integrity from powerful leadership in the FIFA organization has opened the door to compromise. Yeah, in some respects. So FIFA is selling football. We got right after the World Cup news that FIFA was thinking about selling a 20% interest in football to private equity, to a private equity firm. That is, one of the members is Josh, is the brother of the son-in-law of the president. So Josh Kushner and his people are a private equity firm, and they're going to sell 20% of this to that firm. FIFA would have majority interest under the guise, well, not the guise, under the view that they generate more capital, they get some media capital, and the member association will benefit from it. And the headlines we see is FIFA is selling football, private equity is taking over football, Infantino's gone too far. Now, what is private equity? Because that's important, right? You hear the word private equity. Now, private equity, I'm going to give you an example of private equity, so make it more resonate. Because it's not that complex. So there are private organizations who invest in a lot of different asset classes. Could be retail, could be technology, just anything. A lot of the companies that you see, whether it's even the AI companies, they're underwritten by private equity money. So in the institutions, which get money from different sources, from maybe rich individuals or even pension funds who allocate a portion of their assets to these organizations, and they invest in startups, mainly in private companies, with the view that if they have one company that hit, so they invest in 10 companies, and one hit, that could bring them ridiculous money. So if you invest in Starlink, if you invest in ChatGPT, if you invest in Anthropic, private equity, those companies are worth billions and trillions of dollars, and you give them startup money early, and each round that they have, that valuation increase, you make a lot of money. So the Kushners have a lot of money, make a lot of money from real estate, and they want to get a piece of the action because they see the potential for FIFA and the commercialization of FIFA. So people lost their mind. The fans exploded. The media lost it. Politicians got involved. When they get involved, it's a problem. Football Association raised concern, which was surprising given that if you're going to do such a deal, if you're going to make such a decision, you would think at a minimum, your board would know about this. So not necessarily all the MAs, because loose lips will travel, and you want to keep it secret until you get it all flushed out. But it came out that they're going to do this, and most people didn't know. And also part of it was that JP Morgan was the underwriter, not this underwriter, but was overseeing this process. And JP Morgan, as you know, is a world-renowned financial institution that's mainly a bank, but has other arm to it. Have a private equity area, frankly. They have investment banking, private equity. They have a bunch of different, and they're not doing this because of altruism. They're doing it because it's all about the money. And people lost their mind. And to this point, they're saying there's loss of faith in Infantino. First you hear Europe came out and said, or UEFA came out and said, this can't happen. And then individual FA saying they lost confidence in Infantino. Then South America followed suit. Kranky followed suit. Then South America. One place you haven't heard a lot from is CAF, right? Is the African Union, which is really interesting. And they back Infantino. Now, before I go into the benefits and the detriments of this, because as I said at the outset of this program, there's two sides to everything. Everything. And all we hear about is the bad side of this. We heard of no benefits. It's really interesting when you have a narrative and you carry that narrative and it works for you and you have control of information and media and you decide to go hard and you touch upon some emotional element of people, how these things work and how they take up life of their own. So all you hear was about the bad part of it, but because I'm balanced, because I'm balanced. I'm going to give you my sides from both sides today. Not a one-sided view, not a myopic view, not a parochial view, not a view that says it's wrong, it's horrible, it's terrible, it should never be done. I'm going to give you two sides, and then you make your decision, because sometimes the media make up our mind for us, and we can't make up our own minds. So let me take some comments, and then I'll jump into it. Both sides. I'm going to go bad first, and then go, if there's any good, I'll go good. So who Kranky said, who Conrad says hanging out too much with me? What are you talking about, Conrad? So the minute man got a Peace Prize, the door was open for some form of business. Yeah, well, Infantino didn't help himself by associating himself with Trump and giving Trump the Peace Prize for what? For starting wars. What was the JFF vote, Kranky? Well, we don't know, because the president came out on radio station and expressed some concern about the lack of transparency. But he wasn't looking in the mirror when he said that. Why these people have broken mirrors at home? I don't understand that. I'm going to digress again. People, hit the like button. 51 of you watching, 43 likes, and I'm sure a lot of people have come and gone. Please hit the like button. Why do people in glass houses throw stones? He said there was a lack of transparency, and that was a concern. Did he look? Was there a mirror any place close to him? Huh? Really? We're told all the time that the JFF is a pseudo-private organization. They're part of FIFA, and nobody can tell them what to do. They're not beholden to the public. The public just told FIFA this ain't going to happen, and FIFA backed down. But we also know that FIFA have a country to themselves, organization to themselves. They make their own laws and do what they want to do. And yet, they acquiesce to public outcry. Interesting. So the JFF president complained about lack of transparency. And JFF is such a transparent organization. But we won't digress. So here's why people were worried, or concerned, or outraged, or decried this, or lost their you-know-what mind. Because this is important. Number of reasons. One, football becoming more commercial. So what happens when an investor put billions in football? One thing with private equity, and I've worked with private equity firm, right? I used to cover, when I used to be in corporate, I'd cover them, have a conversation with them. It's really interesting. A lot of well-educated people, capitalists, and it's all about the money. Smart people, but all about the money. When a private equity buy an asset, they buy the asset and they milk it dry. Not necessarily in a bad way, but they're going to try to get as much benefit from the asset as possible. So if you put 20% in the World Cup, for the World Cup, you're going to figure out how to maximize any revenue stream to allow you to get as much money as possible. And when private equity invests in something, they're not looking for no 5%, 10%, 15%, 20% return. No. Just think about in the hundreds or in the thousands of percent in terms of return. I used to look at, I remember a firm I used to talk to, they're in business for a long time. Their internal rate of return, so their normal everyday return compounded was 88%. That means almost every year them double their money. So simply give you an example. If they have $10 today, and it was 20 tomorrow, it was 40 the next time, it was 80 the next year, it was 160 the next year, it was 320 the next year, it was 640, and on and on and on. So them do them business. So now nothing you double mean you go from 1 to 2 and and you go from 2 to 3, because that's a double count. No. You're compound it. That's how they make their money. So when private equity come in, because they're taking much more risk, because there's always a good chance of them losing their money. So more risk, more reward. And then now they come in and they probably leverage your company too. And put you in debt. Like happened in Man U with the Glazers. They want to generate high return. And they have to increase revenues. Which would mean a number of things, which is, you hear a lot of complaining in football today about too much football are playing. Well, and we hear about the Club World Cup that was played last summer. People are saying people are burnt out. And this World Cup didn't really help either. Well, there can be more matches, more competitions. You need to have more sponsorship. So the more games you have, the more you can sponsor those games. More advertising. which include hydration break, probably have more hydration break, probably go to more 4 quarters versus 2 hydration break. You probably have, you have 3 breaks in football. Okay, you have the first hydration break, halftime, second hydration break. You probably have four breaks at some point. Ticket price is going to increase, because you know that, girl. Streaming price going to increase. So they would think about, what are all the avenues I can make money, and how do I find ways to increase those prices? That's part of the concern. It's money grabbing. But we talk about the opposite, because everything is opposite. We talk about what money grabbing provides versus just being greedy. So we do that when we talk about the benefits. Because this is about things which people are worried about are challenging. And football historian will tell you, as they always do, it's about the people. It's about the game. It's about history. And then I realized that history changes all the time. And money is now the thing that people focus on when it comes to history. That's why Elon Musk gets so much notoriety, even though he's you know what. Also part of the concern that people express, those who are thinking about the cerebral approach, sorry, mixing that word up, is football has traditionally been governed by sporting bodies. And if you bring in private investors, that will all change. They'll have more influence. They'll have more say. They won't be altruistic in their approach. It will all be about the money, and it could be a detriment to the football. So will the being commercially driven affects FIFA in how you prioritize certain things for the benefit of football? And would the football itself be driven more by the business of football than the football? Even though today, I think the business of football more drives football across the globe, including FIFA, than just the football itself. The scheduling, which we talked about, is a major problem in football. And your players like Rodri talk about burnout. Well, that's also a problem. That's also a challenge. If you have private investors going to say, you know what, we need to make more money, so we need more events, and we got to figure out how the calendar can work so we can do that. So these things, if you think about them from a footballing standpoint or a commercial standpoint, there's a conflict there. Your priorities, your objectives could be influenced more by the commercial activities if you're influenced by private investors than the more altruistic or the better way of thinking about football as a people thing. It's more like non-for-profit versus for-profit. Because non-for-profit is supposed to be more socially good. For-profit is supposed to be socially bad. There's also the view that if we put more money into football, and supposedly what they were going to do for this, I don't know what Infantino thought he could get away with this. It's a madness of people. He's going to carve out a separate entity to manage this. So carve out the World Cup from international football. Nobody have a football then. All is culminating a World Cup every 4 years. And they're going to give 80% to FIFA and 20% to private equity. And Infantino would run the organization, making $30-something million a year. Or 30-something million euros a year. Lord help us. So Infantino got carried away with himself. And by the way, there wasn't a lot of transparency as we talked about before. So here's the thing about the football. Who would receive the money? Would grassroots football benefit, which is what football is there for? What would happen? How would the money be distributed to all the nations? Will the biggest competition get most of the investment? How are the money going to be distributed? All these things didn't sort of materialize. But these are the detriments. We'll get to the benefits, people, if there's any. And what about the football itself and football identity? Many people believe that football belongs to the people, that Wall Street is horrible and bad, that billionaires and the money they provide is a problem in life, much as in football, which is where you get relief and can go to not think about these things. And people get very emotive about this. And the last World Cup, with all this dynamic pricing and ticketed pricing and all the challenges around it, just emphasize that. So it's a very emotive topic. So the question is, if you are a person, if football is supposed to be grassroots and the people's sport, not golf, the gentleman's sport, or polo, then will the business change it and make it inaccessible to certain groups and certain people in certain countries. I want to change things, I want to change people. And even if the people believe that there were merits to this whole thing, given football history, from the last president, Blatter, to now Infantino, and we know the corruption that transpired, and the only reason why people from certain other jurisdictions didn't get caught up in this because they don't bank in the Americas. Can you trust FIFA? And we know how World Cups were doled out. We are concerned about Qatar World Cup and Russia World Cup and what money changed hands. Can you ever trust people? So the history informs people's perception of what this means and what this entails, that only a few would benefit. So we had legitimate concerns that I've talked about in terms of it being a commercial activity, the lack of trustworthiness, the lack of transparency, people being displaced. Football has a history and it should be for the people. All this is great. And the press was scathing, the politicians were scathing, the association, the MAs were scathing. Because apparently, which doesn't make any sense to me, apparently, the way it reads is as if it was only Infantino and the bankers who knew about this. People, let me take a drink again. Hit the like button, please. Hit the like button. It appears that only, which is I find weird, it almost appears as because it's so much people resign or people indicate that they had no idea. It makes it sound like only Infantino. How could one man come up with all this idea and execute it? It doesn't make any sense to me. That's what it seems like. And Infantino got most of the blame, and he was scathing. He got ostracized. People say they've lost confidence, and he's now scrambling to talk to Trump and others to help him figure out how to work through this. And he was every person at the World Cup. I was just saying there were 10 Infantino because I saw him at every game. I know he had a private jet, but he must have had police escort to get from game to game to game. Mexico, West Coast, East Coast, middle of the country, Texas. He was everywhere, almost at every game. It's crazy. Plane must fly fast. Must be a one of those planes. We have the Concords he had because he was everywhere. So that's the bad part of this, actually. But is there a good part? Do you think there's a good part to this? I want to hear your guys' point. Is there any good you think come of this? So I just walk you through what was bad about this proposal and how it was deemed to be horrible, reprehensible, divisive, unbelievable, terrible. What the hell were people thinking? Who want to do this? We're destroying the beautiful game. The game that gave us Argentina, by the way. The game that gave us the previous FIFA with Sepp Blatter. That's the game we're talking about. Is there a case for the other side of this? That's the question. You guys think there's a case for the other side of this? Let me hear your views before I go into this. Do you think there's a case for the other side, for the private investment side, for the private equity side, for money to be invested and individuals, the small group to have a portion of this? You think there's any justification, any way, shape, or form this should be done? What are your thoughts? Because the one group that came out first about this was UEFA, and they were scathing. And by the way, UEFA and Infantino and FIFA have major issues, but mainly Infantino and UEFA, they don't like each other. There's literal hate there. Because even the referee, who was banned by the US, was given a match by UEFA after he was banned. So Wayne Thompson, hey Wayne, how you doing? Wayne says private investment. But I want to know from people, which is there a case we made for the other side of this, for the private investment side? Or just from the side of, you know what, it's bad for football, it's killing history, it's killing the sport, it's awful, it's terrible. What the hell are they thinking? All of them should be gone who are involved in this. So Wayne says private investment is important. For a sport that generated 10 billion, Wayne, it's kind of hard to make that case, isn't it? For an organization that generated 10 billion from the World Cup, isn't that hard to make a case that private investment is needed? For FIFA, not necessarily for countries, but for FIFA. Because we have private investment in a lot of different places, especially in the US, for example. We saw where Pochettino is not paid by the US Soccer Federation. He's paid by all them rich billionaires. So DC said, FIFA doesn't need private equity to survive. It appears to be very profitable. Look who's proposing it and who stood to gain the most. Very greedy folks. So I have a question for you, DC. You said to survive. You mean to survive, to thrive, to grow, to evolve, to expand? Don't you need investment? I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Don't you need investment? Is it just that to survive? Because survival is not what we're in the business for, right? I want to make sure they have an upward trajectory. So here's what I think about private equity. Let's say it's a very crude way to think about it. You guys watch Shark Tank? That show on, what's it on? One of them CNBC channel or whatever it is, with Mark Cuban and this arrogant Canadian and Cochran and all those people, right? When they give money to those people who come on and demonstrate a product, that's private. That's concept of private equity. It's private investment. It's not a public company. It's NBC or CNBC, right? It's not a public company. They said, I win. They give you $100,000 for 10% of your company. Think about that as private equity, private investment. And it may go successful. It may bomb too. Yes, some of them said they don't make any money, some make money. So Wayne says, it's important to problem who will end up being the shareholders. So Wayne says, yes, private investment is important. But if it's private, Wayne, it's going to be private citizens, right? Or private companies, or it could be public companies, but it won't be non-for-profits, that's for sure. It won't be non-for-profits. It won't be non-for-profits. So let me give the other side of the equation, because I think this is important. Because when I first heard this, I got a call from someone who watched my channel and who I've been engaging with. And he said, what are my thoughts on this? And you know what I'm gonna do before I do that? I'm gonna go through what my thoughts are generally. I'm gonna tell you the first thing that comes to my mind when I'm gonna say that. Remind me to do that. The first thing that came to my mind when I heard about this. Remind me. So let me just go through the list. If you think about private investment, and they were gonna get what, like $4 billion coming initially. So they priced what's their private valuation was, you put in $4 billion for 20%, which means they value the World Cup at $20 billion. Now, that's interesting, actually. Because I have no idea what the valuation methodology they employed to come with $20 billion for the World Cup, when you just made $10 billion. So it's 2 times multiple of the revenues from the last World Cup. That's interesting. When you price these things, you normally price them. Some people price, it depends on the industry you're in, but for example, you price a company, like a retail company, based on what they call EBITDA. So you take, and it's called earnings before interest, taxes, amortization. So you take out some non-cash items and you do a multiple of it. Restaurant industry may use 8 multiple. So say your earnings before taxes, amortization, and interest was $10. Say 8 times 10, you price, let's say $80, right? That's how they do it. I don't know how people come up with a pricing of $20 billion for the World Cup. That just made $10 billion. So it's 2 times revenue. Does that make any sense to me? Seems truly undervalued. But maybe there's an underlying piece of this, actually. Now, the World Cup is every 4 years. You got to think about that wingspan. But it wouldn't just be, if it's the World Cup, but so you'd only be promoting it. So what I didn't understand about this is if I invest 20% in this entity, is it everything surrounding the World Cup? Or just the work? How does that work? The World Cup, FIFA activities, it seemed like it was a World Cup carved out. So what happened during that 4-year period? How does that work? That would be an interesting one. But the pricing of the World Cup seems a little bit interesting. And we have no idea what criteria they use for the valuation and the pricing. Seems undervalued on the surface, but don't know how they do it. Because the World Cup is every 4 years. So you got to think about that also. As I said earlier, the multiples private equity use and the amount they charge is ridiculous. Yeah, but that's factored in the equation, Jura. So how long to make your money back? Private equity is not going to take no 5 and 10% return. So that's part of the whole equation. But they priced it at $20 billion. And the question was, the first question you asked is, so The 4 billion they put in, how would that money get? What would happen to that money? So you get 4 billion that's put in. Who have access to that 4 billion? What could it finance? Couldn't that 4 billion be given to every MA to finance academies, youth football, women's football, coaching, refereeing, medical facilities, infrastructure, right? The smaller football nations who need help and the encouragement from the last World Cup to do that. Could the money be used to accelerate football development? And here's what's interesting. The concept was this. Each country that voted for it will get 40 million over 4 years. Because now they get 10 million. So we know that from what they're saying, the JFF get $2.5 million a year. That's what it says to me. That currently you get $2.5 million a year. Okay, you're going to go from 10 million to 40 million. Now, my first thought was this. My first thought was this. Tell me what my first thought was, people. Tell me what my first thought was. I want you guys to guess this. What my first thought when I heard all of this. I didn't talk to anyone. I didn't see no Ricketts. I didn't see anybody. What my first thought? Huh? What was my third thought? The most guy guess my first thought. My first thought was this. Mr. Rotted. Ricky's and JFF rich. That's the first thought. And JFF no broke no more. That's my first thought. Even though I'll get broke right after. I know I must spend out the money. But my first thought was thinking, come here, Ricketts, you know, power radio station, you know. How much Jamaica get? Yeah, no, my first thought was, no, not that we don't get, can we get 40 million? Until it's 40 million over 4 years, I said them rich. The debt carve out, don't pay off them debt. Even though knowing them, they wouldn't pay off nothing. Them rich. That's how I'm thinking. I said, boy, right, the Jamaica, all right. Then me and Ricketts talk about, oh, we need accountability, we need transparency. I said, if me and Ricketts, I get $40 million. I'm not telling no lie, people. The transparency thing, they for them corner. All me see the dollar sign. Me not see nothing else. Me not see no, oh, we need to save football. I'm looking at my car fast, me not no money. You think about it, people. We need to save this thing. It's so great to save. Save football. We have to have integrity. We have to make sure the game is preserved. I'm looking at my bank account and it's empty. Yeah? Me care challenge about me youth, me under 20 team, want to make World Cup, me under 17 team for go World Cup, my women's team need money if you play a game, my men's team need recruiting, my men's team need a new coach, me can't afford no coach, so me select a local coach. Really? My thought was $40 million, $4 million a year. I go 2.5 million a chop and say I give me get 4 times the number there. Me can pay down the debt, me can pay off my expenses, me have money in my pocket, me can go party with some of the money, me can do enough things with it. I mean, Ricketts, I try to be, oh, we are very focused on, there's lack of transparency. Yes, I'm missing time. Say, Ricketts, I don't know about you, master. But just tell me, say, no, miss up on $12.5 million last World Cup. And you get back the money, you get back the money right away. FIFA will give you the money. Why me care about private equity? No, I'm not care the money I come from, my money. I thought that Ricketts would say, look, there are some good aspects to this. We have concern. We can't be members of the federation. Each have a single vote, a vote, equal share, pro rata, 200 and something members, and then you make a decision for all of us without telling us. That doesn't make any sense. However, having said that, we have to look at what the benefits are and what some of the challenges are and see where we come out. But all I heard was we need transparency, we need this, and you know, I have no transparency in your organization. But people, me not lie. The first thing I think about, me say, and somebody called me with the conversation, I tell him, say, I am not against this, especially come to Jamaica. I'm not against this. Private equity are parasites, okay? That's basically how I describe them. But they're capitalists. They're capitalistic parasites. That's what capitalists money, they're parasites. And that's what private equity is. It's all about the money. But so is life in general. So here's another thing I think about. You should always be concerned when the first person to jump up and start scream at the richest person in the room. When you ever start screaming and start kick and scream, you know what you ever say? Them don't know my struggle. Them not help me. They have none of my interest at heart. I am kick and screaming when I'm struggling with that can't produce players or we don't have facilities. I don't hear them contributing with all the money they have, and they complain, oh, we have $1 billion deals and $300 billion. Champions League generates money. Does UEFA redistribute money to smaller nations to help them? FIFA is the only mechanism you have to do so. What about facilities? What about pitches? What about coaches? What about science? What about education? What about technology? What about infrastructure? Where is this in this whole concept? All you talk about is, oh, it's hard for football and it's kill the football. And we hear all the people that have a certain persuasion what make it the most nice. That's how we are here. And we just see our World Cup where teams are getting better and diaspora help quite a bit, but people need more money if we invest in them country, if we invest in science, if we invest in technology, feel them to close the gap with the people who dominate the football, who take them best players and can compete with them. But they want to maintain the status quo. So, of course, they're going to fight anything that's going to result in redistribution of money. And the reason why Europe hate Infantino a lot, and he deserves some hating given some of his actions, I've been watching this for a little while now. What Infantino's been doing. Infantino's done a brilliant job of doing a couple of things. One is getting CAF on his side, getting Asia on his side, and some aspects of CONCACAF on his side. And South America. Don't give a damn about Europe. He knows to win because every country have one vote. He needs all of those continents with huge number of MAs. And so what he's been doing is, like, they had the youth development program during COVID. He's helping to get more money out to different administration. He's been more inclusive with those countries, which was being dominated by Europe and to a extent South America for years. And UEFA don't like this. And Europe doesn't like this. I don't care what they want to say. So if you're going to get more money coming in, think about what 40 million can do for Jamaica football over 4 years. All right. Think about technology. In some countries, you can't have VAR. And VAR is becoming an imperative. You can invest in infrastructure to help you the VAR thing, improve referee training, improve fan engagement, digital broadcasting. You can invest in infrastructure for you. You can stream game, more coverage of your game, local games. UEFA don't want that. They want all the best talent to come to Europe so they can exploit them. Technology costs money. You see, AI now, I gobble up trillions of dollars. You want to leverage those things, you need money, and you don't generate no money. Okay, now industry generate money, except you look at agricultural thing and some tourism thing. Money, FIFA earn a lot of money. But FIFA could take that money and invest in itself. Right? Invest in what it does. Instead of waiting every 4 years to get money. So they have more money spread over more period that they can take, they can utilize for their own purposes. That's key. Now you notice, it's almost like a redistribution of wealth. You take wealth from the people them and from the country them who have it, that they want all right, and you give it to the people them who don't have it, and the people who need it. And frankly, if you think about the world, people, the world is changing. Private money is everywhere. Look at all the sport them. Golf with Saudi Arabia money. Formula One. Cricket with IPL. And T20 Basha. Kerry Packer changed it in the 70s and it's never stopped since. Basketball, people are making much billions of dollars a year. It's changing globally. American football. Look at all these sports. We have to go through that. Look at football in Europe. 29-year-old have been sold for like 80, 90 million. And people in England are the biggest hypocrites on God. Because them love them league, them dominate, them have the most money, and they want to maintain the status quo. And those on top always want to maintain what they have or get more of it. You're Elon Musk, you're a trillionaire, you want more trillions. You don't care how much people behind you starve and that you want more trillions. So when you hear UEFA talking, I'm not listen to UEFA. I don't want to hear nothing what UEFA said. I don't want to hear UEFA say anything about anything. Because they're not taking their money and redistribute it to anybody. They're just gobbling up more and more. They take your best assets, they pay them well, but you lose because you can't generate anything of those assets apart from a small transfer fee. Because most of the money is transferred within Europe. When they go, then buy them for 2 million from you, then send them go Belgium, then build them up, then sell them for 80, 90 million. Send them go Belgium, build them up, then send them go German league, then EPL take them and buy them for a ton of money. All the money keeps circling in the same sphere, same area. So the benefits to be derived from getting more money into the MAs so they can invest in themselves. But money itself isn't the problem, doesn't the problem. What FIFA failed to do is a number of things. The governance. You would think that when you make decisions in FIFA, it's made by a body on its board. Didn't appear that way. Transparency. So we complain about Jamaica. Was it inherent in this whole thing? And he asked another question when it comes to FIFA. Who make decision on FIFA? Is a one-man decision thing? Who make decision? Who benefit? Who control the football? And this is important. And you see it big in Europe when you see it in any other place. Because in America, nobody supports them. But in Europe, they do have some protection for supporters. And the supporters have more of a voice. And supporters can fire a coach and fire owner and fire a lot of people. They have that influence. Because they take it because it's life and death for them and they take it serious. So my view is this. I think sometimes we ask the wrong question. We say, is FIFA selling football? It's more like, is FIFA selling the business of football? And the other question is, should the business of football be sold in a controlled way to allow the game to grow? Because here's what's interesting about the whole thing about the private equity investment. It was never explained to us in terms of how would the control work. So I'm a majority shareholder, you're a minority. Did you have any influence? Could you just provide advice? Because most minority don't have majority now have the power. Majority have most of the voting rights. Would private equity have voting rights? And they have voting rights, could they buy more shares in the organization? Or was it still at 20/80? What did 20 give you? And also, who could go in and out of the organization? Is it the same people who came in? You'd have to retain their position. If they sell it, they have to sell it back to FIFA. And how would it work for FIFA? Because we're saying we're going to have a spin-off. When you spin off something, it's separate than this thing. So is FIFA an investor in this entity? And they have an 80%, but the entity is run by somebody different? Do FIFA control who sits in that CEO seat? There are a lot of questions that were unanswered. We never get answers for because it's dead. But what I saw was, when I first heard of this, is all I thought about was my good friend Ricketts, who not talk to me no more. Him rich. Him put FA rich. I get $40 million over 4 years. He can invest in the football. All these things that JFF broke and can't go nowhere. That change. And then they pull it back in. They hear Al Pacino say, they draw me back in, they pull it back. No money now coming. It's horrible. All that money JFF could I say, be sure people at JFF I think, why 10 million star. I'm sure initially they can't say the purpose of life, but I'm sure some people think say, you know what? Why am I not agree with on that thing about 10 million? You know, we can't do with 10 million. Because we heard that before now with the 12.5 million. Now. What could we have done with $10 million? A lot. Not all good, by the way. Vaughn says, money that damages your integrity, your relationship, your long-term goals, your peace of mind, is debt disguised as income. First of all, Vaughn, that's all theoretical. And it sounds all nice. You'll put back up Vaughn comment, people. What integrity did it kill? What? Yeah, relationships will get affected, but who? With people who don't have your interest at heart? And wouldn't it satisfy a lot of FIFA long-term goal and MA's long-term goals? And peace of mind. The world is about money. You think Rudolph, Elon Musk is concerned about peace of mind? What about money from SpaceX and Tesla and Grok and all of them and Twitter and all of them? Or X, whatever you want to call it. I don't trust the Federation to manage the ice cement, but they would probably waste some of it, but they'd probably do something good with some of it. At least they would allow the teams to travel. And some players would come to games and not be excluded because they don't have money to pay business class ticket. You'd hope they would have that. And probably that's spend it off in no time. But at least they even get 4 times what they used to get. That's decent money. I didn't see any integrity involved in this, frankly. I mean, so here's the thing, people are not concerned about people. So what about integrity in football in the UK? That place is flush with money. There's no integrity issue in UEFA with Champions League, where you get $100 million if you win. or even come second. We have no integrity. So we have integrity issue in football in Europe, where money is going around like it's pennies and coins, $1 million coming like nothing. We don't have no concern about it, really. But we have concern about money in FIFA to go to people who don't have no money. People can just draw wool over people's eyes. They just camouflage them and tell them this narrative and they run with it. I've always said this. Listen with your brain, not with your ears. That is a perfect example where I didn't sit there when I heard this and say, it's horrible, it's terrible, private equity is a parasite. Yes, they are, but we all leverage parasites when we can use them to achieve our objective. I didn't see it that way. And what we're doing is giving $4 billion up front. I take that $4 billion, I invest in my MAs, they produce better product, the product can compete, more competition, draw more eyes, more interest, more sponsorship, more advertising. Not a bad thing. When I say one of the main concern and aim for FIFA is to always, I mean, that's why they pay out $12.5 million for the World Cup, right? And everybody got excited about that money. I didn't hear anybody complain about getting $12.5 million to all the teams that qualify. Minimum money, $10 million up front or 10 point something million plus preparation fee. Well, I don't know about that, DC. I'm not going to touch that one, except to say there'd be a trickle-down effect. Put it that way. There's got to be some trickle-down. And people would start asking the question when them do it, right? Maybe they do work like what Speed did with Messi money. You see him buy Chapter Maroon and push out a little man. You see him buy Chapter Maroon. Me see them have him spend the money wisely. Buy assets that appreciate for him Cavalier team. Right? Buy a field. He probably can have a stadium at the field. He can have a place at home because then them homeless. Maybe the JF would have done the same thing. Maybe they would have done the same thing. Got them homeless. Very homeless. In terms of not having the money and not having a home in the concept of, you know what? Maybe JFF would have buy a building and put the JFF on it and have, come to work at 2 o'clock and idea now. Can I have more money versus come at 11 o'clock? I heard they were coming 12 o'clock and 11 o'clock and then chunk change and then gone back to what they were probably. But the fact of the matter is, it was not all that bad, but you think it's the worst thing that ever happened in the history of the world. And I'm sitting there thinking, something must be wrong with me. Am I just because I'm a contrarian in some respect where I don't see it the same way everybody see it, which is I understand the outrage, but I also understand the benefits. Because all people talk about were what's bad about it. Nobody talk about I've never heard any conversation about what's good about it. None. All I heard about was bad about it. And if me poor, I'm going to have no money. And some rich man come tell me about, say, boy, I'm going to take this money because the money bad for me. Huh? What about all the money you're making? Is that not bad for you? How can money be bad for me? When it's not being gained illegally. It's legal money. Selling your soul. My soul is already sold because I ain't got none. I'm broke. See, I'm selling my soul. I'm going to sell soul. UFA ain't selling his soul. When you can pay $100 million as Champions League, but me I sell my soul, can get $10 million from FIFA because I'm private equity. I'm putting some for them money. Why do I care? How is FIFA being sold when you're getting 20% minority interest versus 80%? I still don't understand. I am perplexed. I'm confused. I'm sitting there thinking, I hear Talk Sport, I hear YouTube. I just saw all these people and they lost their mind. I'm sitting there thinking, don't they understand a couple of things? One is this. Who owns FIFA? Oh, we own FIFA, we're the public. Really? So you pick the president for the organization? You can tell them what to do? You can tell your MA what to do? We can tell JFF what to do. What JFF tell us? I'm talking about that. We're a pseudo-private organization and we make decisions internally. The public don't tell us what to do, can't tell us what to do. That's FIFA. Nobody can tell them what to do. Nobody. The MAs and the body of FIFA, Infantino, do what they want to do 24/7. Them run the sport like a dictatorship. So this, but We now saw though, which is interesting. As we saw with the big six and the big teams like Real Madrid and Barcelona were trying to break off at one point from UEFA, who's a hypocrite because they complain and they fight and push back. We saw that because they want to maintain their status quo. Right? We saw what that happened. And we now see the situation. Same thing. The fans in Europe lost their mind. The press lost their mind about having no relegation system and Big Six want to dominate and carve out themselves. And they've uproar caused it. And we now see this with FIFA. So come we can't see this with the JFF? How we can't get this with the JFF, people? We're confused. Or we're not passionate football fans. How come people in other places can use public pressure to change behavior, change decisions, and we can't? Really interesting. So Vaughn said, think about it this way, Kranky, and you said it. Private investment is like a leech. Yeah, but sometimes, we all use leech for our own purposes, right? Somebody try to use you, you try to use them. If they're trying to use you, don't just tell them to go away. What are the risks I'm taking? What do I have to give up? And what am I getting? Never just throw away an idea because you think you've been taken advantage of. Is it a win-win situation or is it a lose-lose situation? I got to give up some of myself, but I'm getting $40 million. I got to give up some power, I got to give up $40 million. In fact, I'm not giving up anything really, except, in fact, the MA is not giving up anything, to be honest. What the MA is giving up? They don't control FIFA anyway. See what the Infantino does. So if you're a Jamaica Football Federation, what are you giving up? Please tell me this, people. I want to hear this. So don't tell me. I'm missing something. What's the Jamaica Football Federation giving up if they voted for this? If they didn't come out and hit out against it and say, oh, blah, blah, transparency nonsense. What are they giving up? If this doesn't happen, what are they giving up if this happens? If it happens or doesn't happen? So it doesn't happen, what are they getting? And if it happens, what are they getting? And what do they have to sacrifice to get it? Please tell me, because I'm confused. I'm not that smart, I'm confused. If you're Fiji, if you're Jamaica, if you're Trinidad, if you're Antigua, if you're Dominica, if you are Dominican Republic, if you're Haiti, what am I giving up? I'm confused. We say it's all terrible and it's worse and it's horrible and it kills the game. Really? I think it probably made the game thrive. Isn't money that drive this last success of this World Cup? Is Qatar? How do you think Qatar get the World Cup? Because they were nice coy boy and say, oh, give us the World Cup because we're Qatar. Or they allegedly grease some palms to get the World Cup. There's money under the table, like Chelsea does to get where they were, or that Man City allegedly did to get where they were. That's how life works. Somebody else greasing somebody's palm. What strings? It's an investment, D. I give you $4 million, I get part of your profits. I get to influence decision, but I'm a minority. And if I'm a minority, how much decision power do I have? How much voting power do I have? My little 20% versus 80%? I think some people miss the big picture. And sometimes when you listen with your ears and not with your brain, you can't see the big picture. I can understand why UEFA is knocking out. I can understand why the Canadians in CONCACAF president and some US and Mexico may be knocking out. I can understand why South America, some people in South America, in some countries, not all of them. But if Europe, anything Europe is supporting, like UEFA, I'm thinking on the opposite side, like, okay, it's not benefiting me. Because they ain't supporting nothing that's not benefiting them. And if it's benefiting them, it's normally, you look on the other side, it's not benefiting me. So this whole idea that it was such a horrible idea and it's terrible and going to kill the world of football. And then I look at it and say, what am I getting and what am I losing? And I'm getting $10 million a year. And on the other side, I'm getting 2.5 million. In fact, I'm getting anything because I always get 2.5. So I'm getting 7.5 million and zero. 7.5. You tell me, people. I don't have to do anything except vote for yes. That's all I have to do. That's a vote yes. We don't know down the line what may happen, but me not give up nothing. Fans may suffer a little bit in terms of pricing. There'll be more advertising, more of that. But the game was mean changed because they have a carve out entity. It was all managing the World Cup. So the period between the World Cup and every World Cup. So I'm getting 7.5 million. I'm not giving up a damn thing. And I'm saying I don't want the 7.5 million because the integrity of the World Cup. First of all, not integrity, because nobody not dishonest. The history of the World Cup. But the World Cup has become about money. We're gonna get 10.5 million. I am very confused. So no tell me what I miss, because I miss something. I'm not that smart. I'm missing something. Tell me what I'm missing. Please tell me what I'm missing. If you're Jamaica, if you're Trinidad, if you're Grenada, if you're Antigua, if you're St. Lucia, what am I missing? Because I have no idea. If I'm in an African country, don't hear enough African country. How much African country you come hit out against the people? Please tell me all the African countries you hear come out and hit out against this really hard. Did CAF come out and hit out against it? Did they lose their mind? Who made the most noise? Europe? Then the Italian Canadian president of CONCACAF. CONCACAF third some Caribbean member, and then can't get one of them Caribbean member there to be president of CONCACAF. Please help me, Lord, how that works. Everybody have one vote. Why them people that then get co-opted and get... It's annoying. Seriously. Oh, I'm a vice president of CONCACAF with no power. So I'll say this. I'm going to close the program down soon. I'm going to say this, a couple of things, which is not everything you hear out in everything in life, before you take a side, because the majority or the overwhelming majority sided one way and say it's right or it's wrong, do your own research, do your own assessment, provide your own perspective, and if it's not aligned with the majority, it's yours. We don't all see eye to eye. When sometimes when the majority run the right way, they run the wrong direction. Because they might follow somebody else or something incredible. Look around you, make your own assessment, have your own independent mind. When I heard this thing, the first thing I thought about was this, because I understand private equity. First thing I thought about is 40 million for Jamaica. And people will take this serious thing. I didn't think about the nuances, how you go operate, how you go work. I heard carve out, because companies carve out something, sometimes they operate separately. I didn't know about Infantino being president. I didn't know Infantino making all that money. But something you have to give to get. And I'm thinking about the benefits and the detriments. That's all I think about. Good, bad. How does it help me? Because it's all about me in terms of Jamaica or Trinidad. How does it help the Caribbean? And if Caribbean vote as a group, can they get something as a FIFA for voting as a collective? Because when you vote on people in life, if you vote as a collective, like how certain persuasion in New York vote. Like a one vote, but enough votes in any one vote. That's what you got to do. You can't just follow the crowd or just follow some people that do. You do your own thing. So, I think I left you with something to think about. Was this what? Okay, let me ask you a question now. So, let me provide both sides. You see, can't be stuff. Which I wasn't trying to do. Do you agree with the fact that Jamaica would lose from this or would benefit from this? I hear the point. My point is that we're there. Would Jamaica lose from this if they went private equity? Would Jamaica lose or would Jamaica benefit? We want to hear an answer. Because we are think parochial now. We are think locally minded now. Even though most of we are diaspora there. Would Jamaica lose or benefit if we go private equity? Which one in your mind? After hearing the sides of board argument. Come on, 51 people in the chat. We can't just type. Someone like in type or I'm calling, but let me know. Because people, almost 12 o'clock, I've been here for about 9:30, almost 2+ hours. When I respond, people, come on, people, man, because you had a lot of strong thoughts early. Would Jamaica lose or benefit from the private investment? Vaughn says certain deals lock you into obligations, contracts, or partnerships that limit your freedom. I don't think this one would actually. Vaughn, you're a minority. So when you're a minority, Vaughn, it's what you said for being a minority now. Depending on how the voting structure is set up, you may not have much say. Now, if you're private equity, you're going to look for get some influence. But at the end of the day, you're a minority. That's why Asamoah went to Everton from Yusumov left Everton from Arsenal because the Krankies were a majority. So Ricky's on speed, not Jamaica. Okay. That's one way of thinking about it. But Jamaica could also hire a coach with that money now. You get 7.5 million. You can take out $500,000 to get a coach. So we don't have to make a decision based on just who we can afford, but who will be best for the role. So we are no. So let's think about it this way. Forget about the individual elements of this, which is your concern about the. I want to be careful with my word. Your concern about the trust that you can put into the people who are going to be handling the money. But let's think about the country in general. So the money going to the MA and they have a chance to distribute the money and you hope they some trickle down effect, some get to its right place. Right? Versus no money coming in at all. I don't think there's even a discussion. Seriously. If I'm Bolivia, if I'm Jamaica, if I am any of those countries, why would I care? I'm getting benefits to help my country and my people. So it's private equity. They're elite. So what? It's all about money anyway. I'm Bolivia. I didn't make the World Cup. I'm Suriname. I didn't make the World Cup. I'm Jamaica. I didn't make the World Cup. I'm broke. I didn't get money like Curacao did. Or all these UEFA country did. And UEFA them have UEFA competition. They make all the money in Europe. They have some trickle down effect when money gets spread to all them MAs. We don't have no money from no source. Would I give a rat's ass? I find it amazing that people don't see the big picture and are very focused on, we're going to kill the game. The game's been killed a long time ago in its Puritan form. It was never pure form either. The game always have hidden things in it which are not digestible. It's like people talk about, and I've said this, has the US lost its moral compass? What moral compass? They ain't got one to lose. It may have a facade that it had one. It never really had one. Go look at history. It ain't got none. Now, the people in the country may have one. The people who run the country and the country itself in general who make foreign policy decisions, they ain't got none. So don't be fooled by that. Nonsense. Anyway, I have exhausted my time. It's 11:45. I promised myself I would do more than 2-hour show. I appreciate each of being here. Hopefully I give some food for thought about discussion tonight. Talk about the World Cup observation. I had about 18 or 19 of them. And then about FIFA and Infantino and this whole situation. And try to give you a perspective which is, I think, a more balanced view than the view you get from the general public, from the media who like to control our thoughts and our minds and how we operate. And also the people who have money and power and resources trying to tell us what's best for us. Always be careful by the haves telling the have-nots what's best for them, because it's never best for them. Yeah, but that was more about individuals than about the collective. That money wasn't going to West Indies cricket. It was going to people like Lawrence Rowe, who was part of that contingent, right? So we're conflating two things, Peter. We're conflating the individuals. This money is not about any individual. It's about the country. And we're all into the country and the nationalism and the patriotism. So Kerry Packer, or the South Africa tour, when South Africa sort of, Kerry Packer in the 70s and in South Africa in the 80s, and people who went and in apartheid time, which is a little bit different situation, but still was about individuals and their financial situation. It wasn't about the country and its financial situation. So it's a little bit different. And we don't have an apartheid regime to deal with, which was inhumane. This is just people making money. So it's a little bit different. It's different. I understand the analogy, but it's different. Anyway, everyone, first of all, I want to thank you for being here. It's been an interesting evening and having dialogue on the subject. I want to drop a video on my SSN network. I just don't have the time, but it came out. I want to mention it before I go. It came out that the person in the White House had over 300 accounts that were at Capital One, which is a big bank in the U.S., and they decided to close those accounts. And because I had some, I don't want to overstate, some expertise in that area, I want to do a video on it. Because I read some things where people were saying he did money laundering and all that, and I want to set the record straight. I just can't find the time. I was going to do a long video on that because it requires a long video to explain how the whole process works and how you get to where you get to. I just don't have time to do it, but I really want to do it. And if I do, it's going to be dated, and then you don't get no views. But anyway, it's an interesting topic that I want to cover. So hopefully I get time between now and Friday and do a show on it. Not a live show, but a video on it because it's interesting. And if there's somebody with 300 accounts, sound like a lot, but the nature of his business, not a lot of accounts. Yeah, but I think we sometimes have to look through all the noise, all the maze, all the clouds to come out to where you need to come out to. Right? Understand that percent. Look, I understand all of that. I understand what you're saying. It makes a lot of sense. I understand the view about how this was done, who is involved, a family of the Orange Man in the White House. I understand all of that. But I'm still going to go back to the question. It's not illegal. And if I have 0 versus 7.5 million, and I don't have no money, and I complain about coaching, you could do this for coaching, to get coaching and licenses. You can underwrite or subsidize some of the coaches who don't have the money to pay for classes. You could do it all that money. Now, some people may take some people say, well, people going to take money and they might spend the right way. If they get 7 million and then take half for themselves and then spend half, them still spend half. Still spend half. Yeah, Josh Kirshner, the brother of the son-in-law of the president, he was affiliated with his private equity firm. So yeah. That's why they have the conversation in the first place. They probably broached the idea to him because they probably see an opportunity, because they always do. Oh, by the way, people, I did a show on Dr. Fauci's testimony to Congress when he was being hassled by some of the senators. I did an excerpt from it. So go to SSN Network and go watch that. Tell me, give me your feedback on it. And they're showing that. And I talked about the person in the White House and how he made his money, and do the comparison between Fauci being, they say Fauci is rich and he have over 12 million versus what a doctor should make and what the person in the White House make, and how you compare somebody who make billions. People say it's legal versus one who make, it's an interesting comparison, but go watch it. SSN Network. I'm going to do more shows on that channel, actually. More reaction videos. But anyway, I appreciate you being here. It's almost 12 in the US, almost 11 in Jamaica. Thanks for being here. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel, people. I will be here on Wednesday to do a watch along for Jamaica U20. Gonna play Canada. The winner goes to the World Cup. Now, I believe they can beat Canada. And in fact, they should have beat Canada the last game, but they can beat Canada. I just want Rudolph Austin to pick the right team. And Rudolph, call me. Even though you don't have my number, I can tell you who the team should be. It's very easy and very obvious. And your changes need to be enhanced, Rudolph. So maybe you take off sometime when you put on, lately, let me tell you, Rudolph, right now, lately if you get more game time. I mean, I count the people who should get no game time, but lately if you get more game time. Lyle Field was up on the field. Belfield was up on the field. I don't know if Nolan was injured, but you take off Nolan. But we'll talk about that, people, on Wednesday, all right? So, anyway, have a good night. Thanks a lot. Hit the like button before you leave. Share, subscribe. I appreciate you. Peace out.